I've printed up Dr. Mrs. the Monarch from cgtrader.com. It's a free file. I'm starting out with her wings. The bottom's a little messed up from the print, but we're going to take care of that. A little sanding and we'll get everything smooth and good to go. We're going to go with the basic cleanup of all the parts because of the supports. It leaves some marks. We'll take care of all that and get to the build. All of the parts of the kit have been cleaned up, washed, and are ready to go for building. The keys have to be adjusted a little bit, but that isn't a big deal for this build. Always test your 3D parts that you've printed up and cured, because a lot of times before you cure them, you test them and they fit, but afterwards they don't. This one I had to make some adjustments. I finally got some primer on the pieces. This way I can see if there's any more deviations that I have to deal with. Time to start laying some paint. We're going to start with the yellow on the boots, build this up in a few layers, and then we're going to gloss coat it. After the yellow had dried and I put some gloss coat on, I started painting the black onto the gun itself, and I'll do this by hand painting and we'll get this done as quick as possible. It was time to start painting the body. I started with the yellow, and if you notice, I have a lot of bubbles in my cup for my airbrush. I didn't realize I was starting to have problems with my airbrush. My Badger Patriot 105 went down, and eventually I would have to switch over to my chrome and finish the paint job on this kit. This is where I was noticing I was still having problem with the fit of the leg. I glued it on there just to get it in place, and then I'm going to put some putty in between to get rid of that gap over there. I ended up having a paint issue, took the leg off, stripped down the paint, and reprimed her. I ended up painting this kit about 3 times. This was the first masking attempt that didn't work out well. And yet another mistake. Here it wasn't too bad, but I realized her straps were supposed to be yellow and not the Mars orange that I used. As you can see, I'm back in primer. What I used was Ammo by Mig's liquid mask. This way I could cover up all the flesh tones I put on, and then I could start masking up and painting the proper way, hopefully this time. After a few failed attempts and frustration, I went back to the old reliable. I took out my Tamiya tape and started masking everything off very slowly and getting back to painting. I went with 3 different methods here: the regular Tamiya tape, Tamiya stretchy tape that goes around curves, and Ammo by Mig liquid mask. Finally, I have my black layer on, all nice and smooth. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to add Mr. Super Clear's semi-gloss to make the suit look satin, like she's wearing a jumpsuit. Here's the suit after we have sprayed it down with Mr. Super Clear semi-gloss. It's starting to look like that spandexy type of suit that a superhero would wear. After painting the black, I masked off the black, and then I sprayed in the Mars orange and also the yellow, and then I hand painted in all of the deviations that came from masking, all the little marks that were left behind. And finally, now that the body's all done, I've sealed in the black and the Mars orange and the yellow again with Mr. Super Clear. That was the semi-gloss. I went over the yellow and the Mars orange with a gloss. I went over the flesh tones with a flat from Ammo by Mig. And finally, I got the leg on her. This is again the Soul Yellow from scale 75 with 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear's gloss over that to make it really shiny. There's still a gap between her leg, and there's going to be a gap between the other legs, but to be honest, this kit started to get me very, very frustrated, so I just wanted to get it done. And here the second leg is on there. You can see where the body meets the boot. It doesn't really look that bad. And we're finally getting somewhere, adding more and more body parts to her, nearing completion. I painted the wings in Tanier Yellow from scale 75. I made them flat because I didn't want everything on the body shiny or glossy. We have Dr. Mrs. the Monarch's head all primed up. There's a few spots I have to clean up. We'll get on that and get her ready to go. I used Ammo by Mig's liquid mask to cover up her face because I don't want the black getting on there before I paint her flesh tones. Her hair is all blocked in now. I actually had to touch up a lot of the edging because the liquid mask sometimes leaves a jagged edge. So the next thing we'll do is her flesh tones on her face. I sealed all the paint in with the semi-gloss. This way I can add any shades that I need to afterwards, and the first layer of paint is sealed. I'm sorry I didn't show you how to do her eyes. I've just been having trouble getting the camera on a good angle to do that for you. We'll figure that out on the next build. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little Vallejo flesh wash, and I'm going to do it in her ears and around her nostrils just to give a little added detail to the build. And I'm just putting it on. I'm going to let it dry. If there's a little extra, I'll end up taking it off with a Q-tip. The next feature on her head is I'm going to do the earrings. I'm using the Mars orange that we used on her outfit. This way it matches the Monarch looking piece on her chest. And once we're done getting the paint on, then I'm just going to go over it with a coat of Ammo by Mig gloss. I don't like a shiny sheen on my flesh, so after I was done with all the other paints, I've added a flat coat by Ammo by Mig. I put a little gloss in her eyes and on the earrings like I said before, and I added pinky flesh to her lips with a gloss coat. The last thing I have to do with her head is put a little CA in the hole here, and we're going to add the crown and her head will be finished, and then we'll move on to putting her head on her body. And the final piece of the puzzle is putting a little CA down her neck, and then we're going to attach her head, and the CA will hold it in place, and this build will be done. And here we go, placing her head on her body, and this is the finished build after a few seconds of holding her head in place. So I hope you enjoyed the build, and enjoy the final pictures of Dr. Mrs. the Monarch.